Okay, guys, I think I'm live and I ended up having to restart this video because this honestly it's the first time that I've ever used Facebook Live, and I really wanted to share my screen with you guys. So this is a topic that is easier to visualize, or when you have visuals rather than for me to explain it to you guys and just have you try to picture what I'm saying. So I'm going to just give it a couple of more seconds before I get right into it. I'm very excited to start this Facebook group. My vision for this community is really to provide accounting and tax resources to therapists, as well as it being a community of therapists where you could go and you could share your stories, your successes, your failures, what works for you, what doesn't work for you. So overall, I just really would love for this to be a community where we could just share our experiences and our expertise with each other. So again, I'm really excited, and thank you so much for being part of this group. It means a lot to me. So let's go ahead and get started. Today we are going to talk about S corporations for therapists in private practice. Now, I decided to make this my first topic on this in this group because it is something that comes up quite frequently in my accounting firm. So let's go ahead and get started. And first things first, during this presentation, this mini webinar, the main topics that I'm going to be going over is what is an S-Corp and how does it work, how you can benefit from changing to this tax entity, and when you should make the change. So there's a lot to know about S corporations. I did my best to really put it in or give you enough information to help you make the best informed decision for your business. But I'm going to do my best to keep it as lively as possible because I know it's not something that most people easily digest, which is no problem. If it's something that you are having trouble grasping, I'm more than happy to answer any of your questions. But we're just going to try to keep it simple, keep it to the basics, and I will go ahead and let you know about like the main things that I see, the main issues, and the main things that I see that you should be aware of if you're considering converting into an S corporation. Okay, so a little bit about me. My name is Jeanette Andrada. I am the CEO and founder of Jeanette Andrada and Associates. We are a tax and accounting firm where we help private practice owners increase profit margins using tax and accounting strategies. So I am an enrolled agent with the IRS. So I am federally authorized to represent taxpayers before the IRS across the United States. I also do love numbers, and I have my MBA in data analytics, and I have also been in accounting since I was 17 years old. So a lot of people ask me, why accounting? Why accounting? Why did I choose that? And I jokingly tell people, I didn't choose accounting chose me. And honestly, I say that jokingly, but I've always been the type of person that loved accounting, and I ended up taking that role even when I wasn't even sure what accounting was. I was just kind of always placed in that role, and so throughout the years I've learned so much. Formerly, I became an enrolled agent with the IRS, which helped me really focus in on taxes. And yeah, so that's just a little bit about me. I've had my business for about 2 years now, where we help therapists and private practice owners with managing their accounting and whatnot. So I digress. It's just a little bit about me so you could know if you don't already know me. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and get started. Now, the first thing, you might have already heard of S corporations. You've already might have an S corporation. But first, I wanted to just kind of give you a definition of what it is and what it's not. So one thing I get a lot is that I will be asked, should I become an LLC or an S corporation? Now, that the thing about an S corporation is that it is not a legal structure. Thank you, Aisha. I appreciate it. So, an S corporation is not a legal structure. An LLC is a legal structure. PLLC, that's a legal structure. That has legal implications. An S corporation is a tax structure. It's a tax election. So when you elect, when it's a tax election that allows you essentially to be taxed under subchapter S of the tax revenue code. So it's not necessarily that it has a legal protection, but it will give you some tax benefits. Alrighty, so in order for us to understand the tax implications of an S corporation, we do need to understand sole proprietorship taxes. So if you, like most people, have had a W-2 position, you will know that your employer is responsible for taking or withholding your taxes for you, and those are your FICA taxes, your FICA Medicare taxes, which is about 15.3%. So if you are a sole proprietor, you are your own employer. You're responsible for your own taxes. So you are essentially paying the entire 15.3%, whereas when you have an employer, they pay half, you pay the other half, okay? So when you're a sole proprietor, it doesn't matter how much you pay yourself. You could pay yourself $0 throughout the whole year, or you could take all the money out of your business. You are going to be taxed on your profits. You're not going to be taxed on what you pay yourself. So owner's distributions are not tax deductible. If you're a sole proprietor and you decide to withdraw $500 every week, well, that's not an expense to your business. That is a draw, a distribution to you as an owner. So it doesn't matter how much you pay yourself. Like I said, you're going to get taxed on all your profits. So I created a couple of samples because, like I said earlier, I'm very visual. I feel like it helps explain it a little bit better when we have actual numbers. So what does, what does being self-employed look like in the real world, right? So if you're, let's say you have $200,000 in sales revenues, right? And after your expenses, after everything you deducted, you have $125 left over. Well, you are going to pay about 15.3% of that $125,000. So that results in about $19,000. That's a lot. So this is essentially the way that a sole proprietorship would work. So now that you have that understanding, let me go ahead and get into S corporations and why they're so beneficial for your taxes. So S corporations, there's two really great benefits. There's multiple benefits, but these are the two that I feel like just make, it makes this really worth every cost that an S corporation has. The first one is that it's a pass-through entity. That means that your business is not being taxed directly. Any profits are being passed through to you at an individual level and taxed there. Whereas a C corporation, which is a different type of corporation, that's going to be taxed at the business level, and then it's going to be taxed again when you take money out of the business, resulting in double taxation. So that's one really great benefit. Now, the best benefit and where you are going to see the most in tax savings is that your distributions are not subject to self-employment taxes. So as an S corporation, you become an employee of your business and you pay yourself a reasonable salary on a W-2 that is subject to FICA taxes. So any payments outside of your W-2 salary are not subject to 15.3% FICA tax. So that's really, really huge when you think about it. So again, let me give you an example because this will really show you how you could save money. So sticking with the same example, $125,000 profit, your estimated taxes are $19,000. Now, if you convert to an S corporation, remember you have to have a salary. Anything you paid yourself as self-employed is considered a distribution. So you don't have a salary, you can't, it doesn't apply. It doesn't affect your net profit and loss. Now, an S corporation, if you have, let's say, a $45,000 salary, now your FICA taxes are at $6,800. That results in about $12,000 in savings on your taxes. So that's huge. And when you think about it, you will be paying FICA taxes only on your salary, again on this $45,000. So as this number grows, it's as this number is going to stay the same or relatively the same. So that means that the more profitable you are, the more taxes you're going to pay as self-employed, whereas you could be just as profitable or more profitable as an S corporation, and you will only pay on this $45,000. So this number is not going to change too much, while this one as self-employed will. So just in this comparison, $12,000 in savings. That's pretty huge. So the thing is that sometimes things aren't that easy, and there are some caveats. There are caveats when it comes to S corporations. The biggest one that I see, and I see this all the time, that other tax accountants do not explain when they're doing conversions to S corporations, is a reasonable compensation. So like I mentioned earlier, we have to have a salary in here. Now, I mean, a lot of people might pay themselves, let's say, $10,000, right? Well, the IRS is not going to be okay with being paid only $10,000 and have the rest of the rest of your distributions tax free. So they set a reasonable compensation. Now, the IRS doesn't really specify what a reasonable compensation is. They just want to see that you are paying yourself what you would be paying anybody else within your position. So the first thought is to go and think possibly that, well, what do other therapists get paid? But when I work with my clients, my strategy is to get this salary number as low as possible, because remember, you could still take money out of your business, not on your W-2, and it be tax-free. So there are different methods of determining what a reasonable compensation is, and I do recommend that you consult with a tax professional that will be able to give you a good reasonable compensation for everything that you do for your business, because the IRS will, if the IRS finds that you are not paying yourself a reasonable compensation, they will essentially come back and tell you that you owe taxes on income that you didn't take taxes out on. So the thing about a reasonable compensation is that you can take a salary without distributions, but you cannot take distributions without a salary. So you could either leave all your money in there. You don't have to pay yourself a salary, but if you take any money out of your business without it being on a salary, that could get you in really big trouble. Another thing to consider with reasonable compensation is that you have to have enough profits to pay yourself a salary, regardless. Like you have to be able to pay yourself. So I see a lot of the time that there are private practice owners that are just advised, okay, you should become an S corporation because that's just the way that it should be. But what happens is that they do not have enough profits to pay themselves, so they're struggling to pay themselves a reasonable salary. They might be doing this as a part-time thing, and so they're not, they're not at that place where they could pay themselves. And I'll go into a little bit more details of the things that you should be looking out for when deciding if you should become an S corporation, but this is definitely a big one, that you do have to have a reasonable compensation if you take any money out of your business. So with converting to an S corporation, there's going to be a lot more compliance than if you are self-employed. With this compliance, there are going to be services that you might need to outsource. That's going to essentially cost you more money. So again, thinking about all the expenses, I just kind of broke this down on like the different expenses that you're more than likely going to see, that might offset any savings from converting to an S corporation. So again, you would have to put yourself on payroll, which means that you would more than likely have to go with the payroll service. Now, you could figure it out on your own, but I'm telling you from experience, payroll is not fun. It's not fun. There are a lot of tax deadlines. There's a lot of things that you have to worry about, and this is definitely somewhere where we don't want to make any mistakes. So $50 a month for payroll, honestly, it's more than worth it for that payroll service taking care of all the tax stuff and doing everything for you. Now, because now you will be reporting your tax returns, your business tax returns, you it is advised to have some type of bookkeeping service, because that's going to really help save you a lot of money in the long run, when it comes to filing your taxes. And I'll get into the tax side a little bit, or the tax return side of it in a little bit, but I did want to mention that a bookkeeping service for, I'm sticking to this example, $125,000 profit, you're looking to pay anywhere between $300 to $500 a month, depending on many variables. So that's something that you would have to take into consideration. Now, the business tax returns. So this is where it really could, you could probably do payroll. You could maybe try to do the bookkeeping on your own. I do not recommend for you to try to do your tax returns on your own. So when you become an S corporation, not only do you have your individual taxes that you file every year in April, now you have business tax returns that you need to file. The business tax returns are filed in March, so they're due a month before the individual tax returns. And those tax returns could be complex. There's a lot that needs to be reported, and that's where the bookkeeping side comes really into play, to make sure that you're tracking not just your profit and loss, but your balance sheet. Now, I've seen CPAs, EAs, other tax professionals charge upwards to $2,000 for business tax returns, business and individual tax returns together. But you're looking to spend maybe $1,000 to $2,000 on your business tax returns if you hire a professional, which, like I said, I really, really recommend that you do so. So in total, assuming that you would be paying $300 a month, $50 a month for payroll, and $1,000 on your tax return, you're looking at an annual maintenance cost of your S corporation at $5,200. So I know that seems like a lot, but let me go ahead and show you the actual savings this is the same example. We were at $12,000 minus your $5,200 expense. You're still at $7,000 in tax savings. So it's really deciding when it is more favorable to make that change. So I guess that brings me over to the next slide. When is the right time? When should you elect to change your tax entity to an S corporation? It's really about timing. You want to make sure that the change that you make out benefits the cost. There are, again, several things you want to take into consideration. Your reasonable salary. You want to make sure that you're able to pay yourself a salary, that you're able to pay for these expenses, and you are not going to end up in the red. If you are working full-time at your full-time job, but you're slowly building your private practice, I do not recommend this. I do not recommend you converting into an S corporation until you are at a place where you know you are consistently profitable. And once you start getting at the 40, let's say $50,000 to $60,000 profit range, that is definitely a time to start considering it. Now, there's a lot of factors that go into it, but that's generally the area where I start questioning my clients, like, hey, maybe it's time for us to analyze this a little bit further and see if this is a good solution for you. And the reason I do this is because I personally know that a lot of private practice owners tend to just automatically elect to become an S corporation because maybe a lawyer recommended it, or they heard that their friend in private practice is an S corporation, so they end up doing that. And like I said, it could definitely cost you a lot more than if you were to just wait. And so in this example, even though let's say you have a $60,000 profit and you pay yourself a $45,000 salary, it does look like you have a $2,200 savings. But after we add in these estimated expenses, well, that puts you in the red at $2,900. And so, in that situation, like I said, it is not wise to make that change. Oops. It is not wise to make that change so early on, because you're going to end up, spending a lot more than you should. I really recommend at the end of the year, or if you're new in your private practice and you just started, I really recommend that you wait at least that first year, especially if you're slowly building your practice, before making that change. And if you are, by chance, like you just have a lot of clients, you're profitable month after month after month, then I would definitely consider an S corporation. But yeah, so if nothing else, I recommend to consult with a tax professional that's going to be able to help you determine that. It is a perfect balance, and like I said, there is setting up different things like payroll and just being compliant with the S corporation. But at the end of the day, if we look back here, the savings are still huge. I mean, they're huge, and when you think about it, the higher your profit is, the more your savings are going to be, which is really, really awesome. Therapists and private practice owners, especially in the mental health field, tend to have very low overhead costs and tend to be very profitable. So that's probably the reason why a lot of therapists will end up converting to an S corporation, because a lawyer is going to assume that, or an accountant is going to assume that. Now, I've seen many times, and many, many, many times, where this has not worked out and it's cost the client a lot of money for making that conversion. So definitely these are things to think about. That is about it for me. If you need help, I have plenty of resources for you. I do offer free consultations. So if you want to jump on a call with me, I'll be more than happy to help you. My email is down here as well. It's hello@JanetteAndrada.com. So feel free to send me an email if you have any questions. Again, thank you for being part of this group. I'm really, really honored to have you guys here. And if there are any questions that come up, feel free to just leave me a comment, leave a post here in this group, and I'll be more than happy to answer your question or send you in the right direction. All right, again, guys, my name is Janette Andrada, and I hope you found this video helpful. I will talk to you guys next time. Thank you.